Pollyanna, Chapter 17, Just Like a Book. John Pendleton greeted Pollyanna today with a smile. "Well, Miss Pollyanna, I'm thinking you must be a very forgiving little person, else you wouldn't have come to see me again today." "Why, Mr. Pendleton, I was really glad to come, and I'm sure I don't see why I shouldn't be either." "Oh, well, I was pretty cross with you, I'm afraid, both of the other day when you were so kindly brought me the jelly, and that time when you found me with a broken leg at first. By the way, too, I don't think I've ever thanked you for that, and now I'm sure that even you would admit that you were very forgiving and come and see me after such an ungrateful treatment as that." Pollyanna stirred uneasily. "Well, but I was glad to find you. That is, I don't mean I was glad your leg was broken, of course," she cried hurriedly. John Pendleton smiled. "I understand. Your tongue does get away with you once in a while, doesn't it, Miss Pollyanna? I do thank you, however, and I consider you a very brave little girl to do what you did that day. I thank you for the jelly, too," he added in a lighter voice. "Did you like it?" asked Pollyanna with interest. "Very much, I suppose." "There isn't any more today that Miss Aunt Polly didn't send, is there?" he asked with an odd smile. His visitor looked distressed. "No, sir." She hesitated, then went on with a heightened color. "Please, Mr. Pendleton, I didn't mean to be rude the other day when I said Aunt Polly did not send the jelly." There was an answer. John Pendleton was not smiling now. He was looking straight ahead of him with eyes that seemed to be gazing through the beyond of an object before them. After a time, he drew a long sigh and turned to Pollyanna. When he spoke, his voice carried the old nervous fretfulness. Well, this will never do at all. I didn't send for you to see me mopping this time. Listen, out in the library, the big room where the telephone is, you'll find a carved box on the lower shelf on the big case with a glass door in the corner not far from the fireplace. That is, I'll be there if that confounded woman hasn't regulated it to somewhere else. You may bring it to me. It is heavy, but not too heavy for you to carry, I think." "Oh, I'm awfully strong," declared Pollyanna cheerfully as she sprang to her feet. In a minute she had returned with the box. It is a wonderful half hour that Pollyanna spent there. The box was full of treasure curious that John Pendleton had picked up in years of travel, and concerning each there was an entertaining story, whether it were a set of exquisitely carved chessmen from China or a little jade idol from India. It was after she had heard the story about the idol that Pollyanna murmured wistfully, "Well, I suppose it would be better to take a little boy in India to bring up one that didn't know any more than to think that God was a dull thing that it would be to take up Jimmy Bean, a little boy who knows God is up in the sky. Still, I can't help wishing they had one Jimmy Bean, too, beside the India boys." John Pendleton did not seem to hear this. Again, his eyes staring straight before him, looking at nothing. But as soon he had roused himself and picked up another cure to talk about, the visit certainly was a delightful one. But before it was over, Pollyanna was realizing that they were talking about something beside the wonderful thing in the beautiful carved box. They were talking of herself, of Nancy, of Aunt Polly, and of her daily life. They were talking, too, even of a life and home long away in the far western town. Not until it was nearly time for her to go did the man say, in a voice of Pollyanna had never before heard from stern John Pendleton, "Little girl, I want you to come and see me often. Will you? I'm lonesome and I need you. There's another reason, and I'm going to tell you that, too. I thought at first, after I found out who you were the other day, that I didn't want you to come anymore. You reminded me of something I've tried for long years to forget. So I said to myself that I never wanted to see you again, and every day, when the doctor asked if I wouldn't let him bring you to me, I said no. But after time, I found I was wanting to see you so much that the fact that I wasn't seeing you was making me remember all the more vividly the thing I was wanting to forget. So now I want you to come, will you, little girl?" "Why, yes, Mr. Pendleton," breathed Pollyanna, her eyes luminously with sympathy for the sad-faced man lying back on the pillow before her. "I'd love to come." "Thank you," said John Pendleton gently. After supper that evening, Pollyanna, sitting on the back porch, told Nancy all about Mr. John Pendleton's wonderful carved box, and still more wonderful things that contained. "And to think," sighed Nancy, "that he showed you all of them and told you all about him like that. Him that's so cross he never talked to no one, but no one." "Oh, but he isn't cross, Nancy, only outside," demurred Pollyanna with a quick loyalty. "I don't see why everybody thinks he's so bad either. They want if they knew him, but even Aunt Polly doesn't like him very well. She wouldn't send the jelly to him, and she was afraid he'd think she did send it. Probably she didn't call him no duty, shrugged Nancy. But what beats me is how he happened to turn you so, Miss Pollyanna. Meaning no offense for you, of course, but he ain't the sort of man I'll generally take to kids. He ain't. Pollyanna smiled happily. But he did, Nancy. She nodded. Only I reckon even he didn't want to all the time. Why, only today he owned me that one time. He just told he never wanted to see me again because I reminded him of something he wanted to forget. But afterward, what's that? Interrupted Nancy excitedly. He said you reminded him of something he wanted to forget? Yes, but afterward, what was it? Nancy was eagerly instant. He didn't tell me. He just said it was something. The mystery, breathed Nancy in an awestruck voice. That's why he took to you in the first place. Oh, Miss Pollyanna, why, that's just like a book. I've read a lot of them. Lady Maud's Secret and Loss of Hair and Hidden for Years. All of them had mystery and things just like that. My stars and stocking. Just think of having a book live right under your nose like that. This ain't not me not knowing it all this time. Now tell me everything. Everything, he said, Miss Pollyanna. There's a dear. No wonder he took to you. No wonder. No wonder. But he didn't, cried Pollyanna. Not till I talked to him first, and he didn't even know who I was till I took the cough with jelly and had to make him understand that Aunt Polly didn't send. And Nancy sprang to her feet and clasped her hand together suddenly. Oh, Miss Pollyanna, I know, she exulted rapturously. The next minute, she was down at Pollyanna's side again. Tell me, now think an answer, straight and true, she urged excitedly. It was after he found out that was Miss Polly's niece that he didn't ever want to see you again, wasn't it? Oh, yes, he told me that the last time I saw him, and he told me this today. I thought as much, charmed Nancy. And Miss Polly wouldn't send jelly herself, would she? No, and you told him she didn't send it. Why, yes, and he began to act queer and cry out sudden after he found out you was his niece. You was her niece. He did that, didn't he? Why, yes, he did act a little queer over that jelly, admitted Pollyanna with a thoughtful frown. Nancy drew a long sigh. Then I've got it, sure. Now listen, Mr. John Pendleton, was Miss Polly Harrington a lover? She announced impressively, but with a furtive glance over her shoulder. Why, Nancy, he couldn't be. She doesn't like him, objected Pollyanna. Nancy gave a scornful glance. Of course she don't. That's the quarrel. Pollyanna still looked incredulously, and with another long breath, Nancy happily settled herself to tell the story. It's like this. Just before you had come, Mr. Tom told me Miss Polly had a lover once. I didn't believe it. I couldn't. Her and a lover. But Mr. Tom says she had, and that he was living now right in this town. And now I know, of course, it's John Pendleton. He got a mystery in his life. Don't he shut himself in the grand house alone and never speak to no one? Didn't he act queer when he found out you was Miss Polly's niece? And now he owned that you remind of something he wasn't to forget, just as anybody couldn't see it was Miss Polly. And her saying she wouldn't send him no jelly too. Why, Miss Pollyanna, it's plain as the nose on your face. It is. It is. Oh, breathed Pollyanna in a wide-eyed amazement. But Nancy, I should think if they love each other, they'll make up sometime. Both of them all alone, so all these years I should think they'll be glad to make it up. Nancy sniffed disdainfully. I guess maybe you don't know much about lovers, Miss Pollyanna. You ain't big enough yet, anyhow. But if there is a set of folk in the world, you wouldn't have to use the pair for the glad game of yours. It'll be pair of corn lover, and that's what they be. Ain't he cross a stick, and most generally, and ain't she? Nancy stopped abruptly, remembering just in time to whom and about whom she was speaking suddenly. However, she chuckled. I ain't saying though, Miss Pollyanna, but that would be a pretty slick piece of business if you get 'em to playing it, so they would be glad to make it up. But my land, when folks stare some, Miss Polly and him, I guess though there ain't much chance. Pollyanna said nothing, but when she went into the house a little later, her face was very thoughtful. So we end at chapter 17 and Today we're reading two chapters, Chapter 17 and Chapter 18. Chapter 18, Prims. As the warm August day passed, Pollyanna went very frequently to the great house on Pendleton Hill. She did not feel, however, her visit was really a success. Not but that the man seemed to want her there. He sent for her, indeed, frequently, but that when she was there, he seemed scarcely any the happier for her presence, at least, so Pollyanna thought. He talked to her, it was true, and he showed her many strange and beautiful things, books, pictures, and curios, but he still fretted overly over his own helplessness, and he chafed visibly under the rules and regulating of the unwelcome members of his household. He did, indeed, seem to like to hear Pollyanna talk, however. And Pollyanna liked to talk, but she was never sure that she would not to look up, and found him lying back on his pillow with that white hurt look that always pained her, and she was never sure which of any of her words had brought it up there. As for telling him the glad game and trying to get him to play it, Pollyanna had never seen the time yet, but when she thought he would care about it, she had twice tried to tell him, but neither time she had got beyond the beginning of what her father had said. John Pendleton had on each occasion turned the conversation abruptly to another subject. Pollyanna never doubted now that John Pendleton was her Aunt Polly's one-time lover, and with all strength of her loving, loyal heart, she wished she could, in the same way, happiness in their mind miserably lonely life. Just now she was to do this, however, she could not see. She talked to Mr. Pendleton about her aunt, and he listened, sometime politely, sometime irritably, frequently with a quizzled smile on his usually stern lips. He talked to her aunts about Mr. Pendleton, or rather, she tried to talk to her about him. As of general things, however, Miss Polly would not listen long. She always found something else to talk about. She frequently did that, however. But when Pollyanna was talking of Dr. Chilton, for instance, Pollyanna laid this, though, to the fact that it had been Dr. Chilton who had been heard in the sun parlor with a rose in her hair and a lace shawl wrapped about her shoulder. Aunt Polly, indeed, seemed particularly bitter against Dr. Chilton, as Pollyanna found out one day when a hard cold shut up in her house. "If you're not any better by night, I shall send for the doctor," Aunt Polly said. "Shall you? Then I'm going to be worse," urged Pollyanna. "I'd love to have Dr. Chilton come to see me." She wondered then at the look that came to her aunt. "It will not be Dr. Chilton, Pollyanna," Miss Polly said sternly. "Dr. Chilton is not our family physician. I shall send for Dr. Warren if you are worse." Pollyanna did not grow worse, however, and Dr. Warren was not just a mod. "And I'm so glad to," Pollyanna said to her aunt, "that of course I like Dr. Warren and all that, but I like Dr. Chilton better, and I'm afraid he'll feel hurt if I didn't have him. You see, he wasn't really to blame after all, and he happened to see you when I dressed you up so pretty that day, Aunt Polly," she finished wistfully. "That will do, Pollyanna. I really do not wish to discuss Mr. Dr. Chilton or his feeling," reproved Miss Polly decisively. Pollyanna looked at her for a moment with mournful, interested eyes. Then she sighed. "I just love to see you when your cheeks are pink like that, Aunt Polly. But why, I would so like to fix her hair if—" "Why, Aunt Polly?" But her aunt was already out of sight down the hall. It was toward the end of August that Pollyanna, making an early morning call on John Pendleton, found that flaming band of blue and golden green edged with red and violet lying across his pillow. She stopped short in awed delight. "Mr. Pendleton, it's a baby rainbow, a real rainbow come and pay you a visit," she exclaimed, clapping her hands together softly. "Oh, oh, oh, how pretty it is! But how did it get in?" she cried. The man laughed a little grimly. John Pendleton was particularly out of sort with this world this morning. "Well, I suppose it got in through the beveled edge of that glass thermometer in the window," he said weirdly. "The sun shouldn't strike it out all, but it does in this morning. Oh, it's so pretty, Mr. Pendleton. And does just the sun do that? My, if it was mine, I'd have it hanging in the sun all day long." "Lots of good you'd get out of the thermometer then," laughed the man. "How do you suppose you could tell how hot it was or how cold it was? A thermometer hung in the sun all day." "I shouldn't care," breathed Pollyanna, her fascinated eyes on the brilliant band of color across the pillow. "Just as if anybody would care when they're living all the time in a rainbow." The man laughed. He was watching Pollyanna's rapt face a little curiously. Suddenly, a new thought came to him. He touched the bell at his side. "Nora," he said, when the elderly maid appeared at the door, "bring me one of the big brass candlesticks from the mantel in the front of the drawing room." "Yes, sir," murmured the woman, looking slightly dazed. In a minute she had returned. A musical tinkling entered the room with her as she advanced, wandering toward the bed. It came with the prince, prudent and encircling the old-fashioned candelabrum in her hand. "Thank you. You may set it here," directed the man. "You get a string and fasten the sash curtain fixture at that window there. Take down the sash curtain and let the string each straight across the window from side to side. That will be all." "Thank you," he said when she had carried out his direction. As she left the room, he turned smiling eyes toward the wandering Pollyanna. "Bring me the candlestick now, please, Pollyanna." With both hands she brought it up, and in a moment he was slipping off the pendants one by one, until they laid a round dozen of them, side by side, on the bed. "Now, my dear, suppose you take them and hook them to that little string Nora fixed across the window. If you really want to live in a rainbow, and don't see but we'll have to have a rainbow for you to live in." Pollyanna had not hung up 3 of the pendants in the sunlit window before she saw a little of what was going to happen. She was so excited that she could scarcely control her shaking finger enough to hang up the rest. But at last her task was finished, and she stepped back with a low cry of delight. It had become a fairyland, that sumptuous but dear bedroom. Everywhere were a bit of dancing red and green violets and orange, gold and blue. The wall, the floor and furniture, even the bed itself, were aflame with shimmering bits of color. "Oh, oh, wow! How lovely!" breathed Pollyanna. Then she laughed suddenly. "I just reckon the sun himself is trying to play the game now, don't you?" she cried, forgetting for the moment that Mr. Pendleton could not know that she was talking about. "Oh, how I wish I had lots of those things. How I would like to give them Aunt Polly and Mrs. Snow and a lot of folks. I reckon then they'll be glad, all right. Why, I think even Aunt Polly would be glad. Get so glad she couldn't help banging doors if she lived in a rainbow like that, don't you?" Mr. Pendleton laughed. "Well, from my remembrance of your aunt, Miss Pollyanna, I must say I think it would take something to more than a few prims to the sunlight to make her baby many door for gladness. But come, now really, what do you mean?" Pollyanna stared slightly. "Oh," then she drew a long breath. "Oh, I forgot. You don't know about the game, I remember now. Suppose you tell me then." This time Pollyanna told him. She told him the whole thing, that from the very first, from the crutches that she had half been a doll. As she talked, she did not look at his faces. Her rapt eyes were still in dancing flash of color from the prim pendant swinging in her sunlit window. "And that's all," she sighed when she had finished. And now, you know why I said the sun was trying to play the game." For a moment there was silence. Then a low voice from the bed said unsteadily, "Perhaps I'm thinking that the very first finished print of that is all yourself, Pollyanna." "Oh, but I don't show beautiful red and green and purple when the sun shines through me, Mr. Pendleton, don't you?" smiled the man. And Pollyanna, looking at his face, wondered why there were tears in his eyes. "No," she said. Then after a minute she added mournfully, "I'm afraid, Mr. Pendleton, the sun doesn't make anything but freckle out of me. Aunt Polly says it does make them." The man laughed a little, and again Pollyanna looked at him. The laugh sounded almost like a sob.